Hi, my name is Gideon Rubin, and I'm a today with Data Standard Experience. On our show today, we have Lehman, the Senior Director of Marketing Analytics at GoDaddy. Today, we're speaking about Tom's background and a little bit of a special topic, how marketing analytics has evolved, challenges around building software to enable usage of live data in analytics for the future. Welcome to the show, Tom.
Well, thank you, Gideon. I appreciate it. It's nice to be here with you today.
Well, great. We'll just jump right in. I'd love to hear a little bit about how analytics as a role or a function has evolved during your, as you've been doing this.
Well, that's a great question. I've been doing this actually for quite some time. Prior to coming to GoDaddy, I worked building analytics software for 20 years. And so I've kind of seen a lot of evolution during the course of my career. If I was to try to kind of pinpoint it succinctly, some of the things that I have noticed for sure is that when I started back in the late 90s, the operation and the approach was through the lens of much more specialization than I find that it is taken today. Back in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, et cetera, I had an elite team of advanced analytics personnel reporting to me, and it looks a lot different than my team does today. I had people that had gone to school and that were experts on building econometric time series models, people that were really very, very expertise in building logistic regression models. And that was the approach. People really kind of picked areas to get very, very specialized. And within the consulting world that I was in, I was able to feed a number of different industry types to the people that had the specialization, and they were very, very good at answering those problems. Things have changed quite a bit since then. People have taken more an approach since the advent of data science. Really, when I started, there was not the term data science. And so You see more of an approach now to where people are really trying to get robust in a number of different areas. And so both ways work, but definitely you have to approach things a little bit differently than before.
I see that too. I mean, definitely now almost every part of the business has some sort of thread with analytics. They need the data for data-driven decision making. So speaking of that, I'd love to hear from your perspective, what are some of the biggest challenges that enterprises wrestle with to become data-driven, to really, move their business based on the information they're getting and the feedback loops?
One of the bigger challenges that I've faced, and I've done a tremendous amount of consulting for basically the Fortune 100. I recommend, if you really want to be successful in analytics, that analytics needs to be aligned to the business side of the company, not to the IT side. A lot of times people will make the investments and put it more aligned with IT, thinking you're moving a lot of data, et cetera. That works to a certain degree, but a lot of times what you run into is you run into investment commitment issues. And I find that for more reasons than one, that you're always going to be best served by having analytics branch up into the business. You're going to be able to really solve around the business problems, which when you start getting the traction around there, you start getting additional investment. And I have always claimed, for anybody that I interview, for people that I talk to at the university level, you really want to be integrated with an analytics company that is business focused.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, taking that same concept from a little bit different position, we're starting to see a lot more C-suites sort of making AI or ML mandates across their organizations, certain goalposts they're putting in front of the business. How do you think that's going to impact business processes over the next 5 years?
I think what it's going to do is start creating more of a decoupling back into the areas of specialization that we've seen before. I'm sure you're seeing this as well. Where people are trying to automate right now seems to be around customer experiences, trying to really get into, by automating the trying to figure out what the needs and goals are of the customers, and to be able to really speak to them in that fashion. And we're doing a lot of this across GoDaddy. We're trying to use analytics to help us understand where we can automate different functions. I think you'll continue to see this, but what's going to happen is you'll see the decoupling, and I think you'll also see that as part of that decoupling, I think some of the areas that we've gotten ourselves maybe in a little bit too deep is trying to get too many functions out of data scientists. We were talking about data movements earlier. I really believe that, we need to be thinking about the investments that we make and getting people aligned to the things that they do well. We're trying to get too much out of data scientists right now. I think we're trying to get them to wear every hat, from a data engineer to a program manager to a documentation specialist, you name it. And we've just trying to get too much out of that specific function. And so, I've gone back to this concept of decoupling. I think you're going to start seeing this as a response, really, from the different mandates that are coming from executive levels trying to automate analytics.
Yeah, and we definitely, from the community of data scientists, we hear that one of the frustrations and challenges is really that a large portion of their time and effort is not spent on their data scientist expertise hat per se, but the things that go around, executing within an organization and being able to drive through the models all the way into, production and be able to actually use them. So it's everything from politicking to data wrangling, but not necessarily actually, what a data scientist is needed for, right? Building the model and making sure the model is effective.
That's exactly right. And, we've actually come up with a new class of analysts that that do a specific functions within GoDaddy. I call these analytic engineers, and it is, they specialize more in the data movements. They're skilled in doing the analysis too, but we've kind of built a team of these. They're not really your traditional data engineers, but they're the bridge in between data engineering as we live it in GoDaddy and really making business outcomes and surfacing the results. And since we've made that pivot, it's really gone a long way for us to try to recognize that, yes, we've got skilled analytic personnel here, but really where their passion is trying to make sure that they can enable other analysts in being able to make business outcomes. And when we made that declaration and put that into place, it's really gone a long way for us.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, that's an interesting approach, and we're seeing some unique approaches successful in the market. So it's great to hear. You mentioned earlier sort of a customer-centric approach as far as building new product functionality based on the analytics and the data you're learning from the customers. I'd love to hear a little bit, if it does at all, how open source and open source software is really changing, your ability to potentially deliver product faster to these customers, or, gain more insight from them.
Well, it's a great question, actually. I've lived both worlds. I worked for a major software producer in the analytics space for 20 years, and I appreciate both sides of things. It was a little bit of an eye-opener, but it was also the motivating factor, which had me leave that company, was I wanted to really investigate and build expertise in the world of open source. So I learned, I know both of them extremely well. In our world, what we've done is we've hired a number of people that are very skilled in engineering and that have experience in open source, which allows us to be very nimble. What I'm finding is, and I found this even in my previous world doing consulting, is that GoDaddy and other companies are finding a sweet spot in several cases that allows us to bring together a hybrid approach. What we can do is bring in a consulting, or rather a commercial software offering, and kind of cater it to what we're trying to do, allow us to get up to a point where we can quickly hit parity with our current systems and then start replacing out some of the commercial stuff. And that's one of the ways that we've been really able to kind of tilt things on the acceleration side. So that seems to work well for me. I find that getting into a lot of new development and so forth in the world of open source and trying to get that to production can sometimes be a thorny avenue. And so I do like to complement that where I can with accelerators in the commercial space.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, it's always great to have a community supporting a software product, but it's very different when you have a commercial entity supporting a software product, right? So the expectation levels are a little different, and it definitely makes a big impact. But I love the way you described how you kind of accelerate the process by working with companies that have the software that you can tweak and get it in the market, and then you figure out how you build the best version of it once you're already in the market and you see the value and you've created a lot of value already. It makes a lot of sense.
That model seems to work well for what I've done in my career.
Yeah, that's great. So there are a lot of data scientists that watch these videos that are part of the data standard community, but there's also a lot of people that are very interested in moving and advancing their career into data science. So I'd love to get a little guidance and advice from you as to what what advice you'd give to someone who's seeking a career in data analytics today. And they're probably coming from more of a tech, engineering, or mathematical background. So it's not really, from scratch out of high school. It's more, maybe they've done a few years in engineering and they loved the data side, the analytics side. Do you have some milestones or some things that you think are really important on that career path?
I do. And I'll go back to, some of the things that we've referenced here. Pick an area that, well, first of all, do it. Come join us, please. We'd love to have you. I mean, we need more people in the world of analytics. So please make the move. In terms of really preparing yourself for it, I think there's a few things that I would bring to mind. I'm a big supporter of these accelerated masters to data science programs, and I support one of them and have been since its inception. NC State has a master's program for advanced analytics that I've been hearing from since 2007. And I've hired a lot of people over the course of my career, and I can tell you that the people that come out of this program accelerate and take off a lot faster. Most of them that I hire are the people that you're referring to. They have some kind of quantitative background in engineering or some other related field. So getting into data science isn't completely foreign to them. And you can go in and within 10 months, pick up a degree that really accelerates and prepares them for the workforce. So I'm very supportive of that model. And then, I've been talking about specialization. I think it's important to pick an area of interest, of passion for you that's large enough to generalize, but small enough to build expertise around. Think about, there's many subclasses of analytics that get attached to, whether that's machine learning, econometrics, there's dozens of them. And so pick an area that you have passion around. There's enough variance and variety from working across different industries within your specialization to where you're not going to completely wear that topic down. The other thing that I really suggest to people that I speak to, either from an interview standpoint or from a mentoring standpoint, is make sure, and this applies whether you're in analytics or not, you want to be aligning the work that you're doing or the work that you're going to towards outcomes, right? You're not really, the days of doing analytics in an academic environment within corporate America are not really that prevalent anymore. So make sure you're anchoring yourself towards something that's driving the business forward or something that will. And, I've said it before, but really make sure that, you're getting where you need to be. And then when you finally decide to make the switch and to come join a company or even within the company you're in, just make sure that they're invested in analytics. And if you have all those lined up, you're really positioning yourself for success.
That's great advice. I really appreciate that. And I'm sure the listeners will appreciate it too. Thank you so much for being on our show today. We really appreciate your time. What's the best way for the community to reach out to you? LinkedIn or Twitter? What do you prefer?
LinkedIn is the best way, and you can just simply look for Tom Lehman. I don't think there's any extensions on my name, so you should get that. Look for LinkedIn GoDaddy, and please reach out to me. I'm very happy to engage with anybody in the analytic community.
That's great. Well, the Data Standard team, they'll link your LinkedIn also so that people can get to it easier. At the Data Standard, we're building a community of data enthusiasts and data thought leaders. We will look forward to engaging with you on our website, datastandard.io, where we regularly post a wide range of podcasts with data executives and offer regular networking opportunities. We always ask too, this is kind of the final thing here. A lot of the members of the community are open for collaboration, and it's great that, you're willing to connect and communicate. One more point that we'd love for people to know is, what can our community do for you? What is most interesting to you as far as, is it networking opportunities or collaboration? If you could give a little flavor of that so people know, why you'd like to be contacted most of the time.
At my point in my career, I've always had a passion for helping people advance their own careers within analytics and to help understand where pain points of these exist. I do a lot of hiring within GoDaddy, and no matter where I am, I do a lot of consulting on the back end to help people in finding analysts, et cetera. So I like being part of that process and understanding what's evolving within the community of where people are learning and where that's either applying well or not applying well. So that's one of my biggest areas of it. And I just like keeping up with for the most part, the general trends that are happening within the analytic community. So I wouldn't limit it to strictly to that, but those would be some of the top of the mind things.
Yeah, that's great. And at the data standard, they're actually building out more resources around career and career path. It's great to know that you'd be open to talking to people that are on that path. So thank you so much for the show today, and look forward to working with you further through the community.
Thank you. It's been my honor.